Territorial disputes are about as old as civilization itself, and the latest involves what's been called one of the most notorious territorial conflicts in Latin America during the last century. Now, in a ruling from the United Nations highest court, the International Court of Justice in The Hague, the maritime border dispute between Chile and Peru appears to be over. CCTV's Dan Collyns joins us live with insight from Lima. Dan.
Elaine, the area which has been in dispute is known for its rich fishing grounds, but this is more than just about a lucrative piece of ocean. There's a hell of a lot of national pride invested in this dispute, and it dates back to the 19th century when Chile took territory from Peru in a series of wars. There's still a fierce rivalry between these two nations, but to get a better idea of what the boundary claims of the two nations are, let's just take a look at this graphic. And you'll see two lines. One is dotted, one solid. The dotted line is the one that Peru said should constitute the maritime border, and the solid line is Chile's position. The difference between those two borders is around 38,000 square kilometers. And when you consider the hundreds of millions of dollars at stake in the fishing industry, it's easy to see why this has been such a hard decision. So what did The Hague decide? The International Court of Justice basically split the difference. Chile got some of the border it wanted, extending from the coastline, and Peru got some of what it wanted, but a larger area. And some people are calling this a win-win. It's more of a compromise, but there was something else as well. There was an additional area further out to sea, which Peru won, nearly 29,000 square kilometers. So that went to Peruvian hands. So finally, Chile kept up to some 17,000 square kilometers, but Peru got much more. Two nations watched as Judge Peter Tomka read the International Court's ruling. It soon became clear that Peru had won most, but not all the territory it was claiming. Hundreds stood in Lima's main square as their leader addressed the nation.
Today we feel satisfied that our sovereign rights have been awarded over a maritime area of approximately 50,000 square kilometers, which represent more than 70% of our demand.
It may be just a stretch of ocean, but this dispute is the focus of patriotic fervour in both countries, but particularly here in Peru. And as you can see from the reaction here on the streets of Lima, the people are treating the ruling by the International Court in The Hague as a victory. Chile retains the bulk of the rich fishing grounds extending from the coast. But since Chile will have to cede territory, Chilean authorities said they were unhappy with the court's decision.
Lamentamos profundamente esta resolución.
We deeply regret this decision, which, in our opinion, is groundless.
The court's ruling is binding and cannot be appealed. Both countries have pledged to abide by the ruling. As Peruvians celebrated at Lima's government palace, the president called it an historic moment.
We know with certainty this map will recognize our legitimate right, which we have been demanding for decades, and which 6 years ago we decided to seek a peaceful solution through the international courts.
The challenge now will be putting in place the new ocean boundaries. So the International Court of Justice says that this new border should be implemented with immediate effect. That's easier said than done. Of course, this is going to be a gradual process to bring both countries into line, and it's largely going to fall to the President-elect of Chile, Michelle Bachelet, who takes office in March, to really put these borders in place. There are still sticking points. In fact, small-scale fishermen on the Peruvian side of the border aren't too happy with the result of the International Court of The Hague ruling, which basically extends the same Chilean border for 80 miles out to sea, meaning that for small-scale fishermen who don't have large vessels, there is no change for them. And for the Chilean fishermen on the other side, who are also small-scale, there's also a situation is no worse for them. So the governments are going to have to iron out these differences. They may have to compensate fishermen for economic losses. But one thing, of course, they can't do is change this ruling. This was a ruling by a supranational court. It's binding and it cannot be appealed. Of course, what the governments both want to rescue from this acrimonious dispute is to make sure that the bilateral trade between the two countries continues. It's currently at around $4 billion a year, and that's increased over the last 8 years by 8 times. So that's a huge increase, and both countries are prospering from that bilateral trade, and they want to make sure that they maintain good ties with each other and not let this dispute get in the way of their future progress.
All right, CCTV's Dan Collyns reporting live from Lima, Peru.